Narrative Essay 2. My first experience in the kitchen. Some firsts are magical and exciting, while some can be really grueling and scary. There are some firsts which are so overwhelming and brimming with thrill that they remain etched in the deepest trench of our hearts forever. And then there are such firsts that we forcibly try to forget. The silly 15-year-old me always used to think how cooking was one of the easiest jobs existing. I finally learnt the bitter truth one day when my parents suddenly went to visit an ailing relative in the hospital. Left all by myself, I was ecstatic to finally start my culinary journey and cook my own meal. Rice first, I said to myself. Enthusiastically, I took out 3 cups of rice from the tin, rinsed the grains thoroughly, put them in a big pot, and thought of adding water according to my instincts. Clueless, I alternately kept putting the gas flame on high and then reducing it until I felt the rice was cooked. Needless to say, I hadn't calculated the time well. The rice was too much for one single person and it turned out to be very soggy. Quite perplexed by then, I decided to cook the dal next. I had presumed it went off quite well. I began by chopping off some white garlic and bright pink onions, put them and the dal in the vessel, and added lots of water alongside. When the mixture started boiling, I kept adding chili powder, salt, and orange turmeric to my heart's content. I put the stove on low and kept waiting. But to my anguish, the dal stopped boiling. Dejected, I quickly chopped a fresh set of onions, few potatoes, carrots, green peas, and chilies, and poured mustard oil generously in a pan and cooked them with lots of spices. Then I stood back and looked at the colorful mixture of spices as they mingled harmoniously with one another. But when I sat down to taste my own creations at last, I was in tears. The rice was overcooked, the dal was pungent, and the curry I cooked towards the end had a terrible taste to it. With a heavy heart, I thought of helping myself to some coffee and biscuits at last. However, I had ended up adding too much of unsweetened cocoa powder to the coffee mixture, which resulted in the coffee becoming terribly bitter. When my parents returned that night, I finally heaved a sigh of relief. Thankfully, they had remembered to bring me my favorite food from my favorite restaurant. Hungrily, I devoured the Hakka noodles and chicken Manchurian as they sat by me, laughing at my plight. I swore to myself before going to bed that night, never again will I claim that cooking is easy. Thank you. That's all for this video. See you once again in the next video.